Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good very late night, depending on which time zone you are in. Thank you for coming to the PanIIT USA webinar on how to land a job in the era of AI. My name is Animesh Pathak, and I am the president of PanIIT USA and a proud alum of IIT BHU. And it is my distinct honor to have a bunch of very experienced recruiters over here so that we can get the perspective. We have Jenni Huang from NVIDIA. We have Sarah Rumball from Upfront Ventures. We have Rob Mallery from Magic AI. And we have Nitu Gulati-Pauly from CyberCoders. And we will get to know them a little better. We'll get to know their histories and their experiences. And of course, we'll get to know their perspectives on some very key topics that are crucial to help us all land a job. Now, you might be wondering, aren't all recruiters the same? Why do we have to have four of them? Well, you'd be wrong if you're wondering that. And part of our goal today is to very actively figure out what the differences are in different kinds of recruitment processes in terms of talent departments and what people look for. And to kick us off, I'd like to pass the mic to Nitu Gulati-Pauly, who has an IIT connection as well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my dad is actually a 1969 IIT Delhi grad. And for those of you that are currently at IIT or were at IIT, he was actually from the Aravali hostel. So a little bit about me, I've been staffing for 25 years. I'm actually on the agency side. And so what that means is companies from startups to large Fortune 500 companies pay me to find their talent. So I've staffed at the very beginning of my career, staffed the first 30 to 40 people at MySpace. And as my career developed, I became known for staffing teams like Tinder and Honey and Dollar Shave Club. And I've also done big companies like Amazon and Apple. The difference between me and someone that works inside a company is that I'm being paid to do a particular search versus having a candidate come to me and being able to advocate on behalf of that candidate. It's actually more, what do people need? What are the specificities? And then I'm looking to find those candidates for those clients. So when I speak today, I'm coming more from a perspective of what companies overall are looking for and what the trends are. And that's my brief little intro on me. I will now pass the mic over to Sarah from Upfront.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I have been in the recruiting world now for about 11 years. I started my career similar to Nitu on the search firm side of things. I worked for a boutique healthcare recruiting firm where we specialized in placing candidates anywhere from health tech companies to hospitals to providers. Quick fun fact, I come from a family of doctors, and I was the only one in my family that did not go down the medical path. So knew that was the closest I would get to going into the field, given I am petrified of blood and needles. So I did that for a few years, but wanted to go in-house and see the larger impact I was making on one company. So since then, I've spent most of my career at growth stage startups. I worked first at what was then a 50-person fintech startup as the second recruiting hire. So wore all the hats, did everything from recruiting to planning people's birthdays and all the things one does at a startup. And then I went over to Bird in the e-scooter micro-mobility space, which we were taking off really big at that time in the US and in LA. So I joined Series B to lead our business recruiting. We raised a C and a D round while I was there. I think the year I joined, we became the fastest growing company to hit $1 billion valuation, but made all the mistakes a startup makes, grew way too fast, hired too many people, and then unfortunately COVID happened and we had to go through layoffs. Most recently, before I came over to Upfront, which I'll talk about, I was at Miro in the collaboration productivity SaaS space. So similarly, I joined Series B to lead our business recruiting. And then there I got to go from learning what it means to be a great recruiter to actually leading a large team of recruiters that supported all of our US hiring. We raised a C round. At our peak, we were valued at 17.5 billion. So saw a lot of really great growth. And we were actually headquartered in Amsterdam and had teams in EMEA and then also in JPAC. So learned a lot about collaborating too across different time zones and cultures, which was a lot of fun. And then currently I'm at Upfront Ventures leading talent. For those of you not familiar with venture, the simplest form or way to think about it is, I'm sure everyone has seen Shark Tank, where the sharks invest money into the founders that are coming in and pitching. We similarly invest money into early stage startups. So Typically, we're the first institutional investor for a company, meaning it's a pre-seed seed round, it's just a founding team, and then we're coming in and typically we support our companies all the way through exit. So we have about 200 plus portfolio companies, and I both hire internally for our firm and then I support all of the companies that we invest in. At the early stages, that could be helping them introduce their first founding engineer to building out a great process and get the right tools in place. And then at a growth stage, that's more helping them with an executive hiring process or even thinking through things like performance planning. So some of the areas that Upfront is especially excited about right now are AI, of course, and that's across data, infrastructure, dev tools, productivity tools, hard tech, so health, so that includes defense tech, space tech, and then health tech. So that's a little bit about me. I will hand it over to Rob.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Rob. Similar to Nitu, I've been doing this for 25 years, which seems like an eternity, but also just a blink of an eye. So yeah, it goes by fast. I started also in external recruiting. Did that for about 10 years. Always focused on software developers, finding software developers for different companies. Ended up going in-house. I was the 12th or 13th employee at a company that was doing what we called at the time venture resources, which was a kind of a mix of software consulting meets a venture house meets a startup builder. So we would build startups. We would basically be the kind of first engineering team for for companies that either couldn't hire or didn't have an engineering team or solve problems for larger companies that couldn't do that, and we would take equity stakes. It was a fun company. We built that up to a couple hundred people, really good engineers. If you look at kind of who we were hiring back then, it was kids straight out of school, but now they're all at FANG companies. So we were always competing with kind of FANG level engineers, but give them an entrepreneurial bent to the first start of their career. So it was a fun talent game to play there. I did that for about 10 years. We spun out a startup called AI Foundation, which was building digital humans. So yeah, we had a little mini swing at AGI with that company. Raised funds similar to other companies that they've talked about here. Ended up not going. We were probably a few years too early in the digital humans market. Now you're seeing that everywhere. You're chatting with digital humans on websites and different places. But back then, yeah, we didn't. We had 500 ideas of what you do with it, but no real product market fit. So ended up joining OpenAI at that time, which was a little somewhat unknown company that had built the GPT-3 model that I always thought was the coolest thing. That when we hooked our digital humans up at the company before to GPT-3, they were magic. They were basically doing things that we didn't program. They were doing things that was to me where things were going. And so yeah, just kind of cold sent my resume into OpenAI. Was in charge of software hiring there between about 170 people, 180 people, and about 450 or so people, and left a few months after we launched ChatGPT, which my wife was aghast at, to join a 8-person startup building an AI software engineer, automating software engineering, and eventually AGI. So I'm now at a company called Magic, which is essentially doing what OpenAI originally tried to do, build AGI with as few people as possible. And we want to automate software engineering. We've probably got a few years left, but not 10. So yeah, the next few years are going to get a little bit wild in the tech space. I'll pass it over to Jenni.
Hi, I'm Jenni. I started a little bit different, I think, than most people. I started my career in finance in the entertainment space, did that for about 6 years and just didn't think it was quite for me. Fell into recruiting through some friends and actually worked with Nitu for 2 years on the agency side and loved it, but wanted to be more integrated into the teams and the companies. So I decided to move in-house. I had joined Apple at the time, building the hardware sensor team for their first edition of their watch, and then was the first recruiter to start the Apple Titan autonomous driving project. That did quite come to fruition, but it was a wonderful experience. And then after that, I moved over to Meta to build out their hardware Oculus team. And then recently, I've been at NVIDIA, oversee hardware recruiting on the AI chip side. So gotten to work at some really large startup or large established companies within tech and some entertainment and then startups throughout the years. Thank you.
I am very, very grateful to have this very impressive set of recruiters over here with us. Looking forward to having some very insightful conversations, looking forward to learning a whole bunch of stuff. Quick housekeeping notes over here. I see we're basically crossing 150 right now in terms of number of people, live and participants. My friends, please use the Q&A section in the Zoom webinar to post any questions that you have. Once we're done with our main big questions, we will absolutely be taking questions from the audience. So please don't hesitate to post questions over there. And with that, let's get rolling. So Jenni, since you went last, I'm gonna ask you the first question over here. And of course, this is open to everybody. Jenni, what do you think is the biggest change that you're seeing? We are calling it the era of AI. AI is being used in multiple places. From your perspective, what's the biggest difference in terms of how you look at the candidates who come through the pipeline to you?
Yeah, so currently at NVIDIA, I would say, NVIDIA is doing some really incredible, innovative things and really building out all these, really incredible components for this AI infrastructure that we're trying to build. For us, beyond the technical skills that I don't know if that will ever change, but the biggest piece that have really shifted focus in our interviewing process is culture. Are these candidates going to be great communicators? Are they going to be able to function within really fast-paced, very agile environments? Are they going to be able to partner with cross-functional teams that might come from different cultures? And how are they going to navigate those cultural differences or complicated situations? That is probably the biggest emphasis that I've seen in the last year for sure.
That's fascinating. Rob, your take, still staying on the company side, if you will. At Magic right now, when you're looking at people applying, what are things you're looking at which are different from before?
Yeah, so our mix is certainly a mix of folks that are applying, to the company, but also, most of our hires come through sourcing. And so, yeah, we do make hires inbound. Sourcing is intense. What we're looking for generally, and this is probably not super indicative of the rest of the market, but it's kind of the tip of the spear, I think, is just we're not looking for folks that are looking for, kind of a job. We're looking for folks that are just exceptional at what they do, and really, grinding on that. What do you want to kind of, so one of the things that I will ask in interviews is what somebody wants to be the best at. And a lot of times people don't know, what they want to kind of really work hard at and grind on to be amazing at. And I think being in the space we're in, we're building our own distributed training stack. We're building our own inference engine. We build all our own GPU kernels. We are training a well over 1 trillion parameter frontier model, but in a different way than anyone else. So we need people that, like, the problems that we have they're not solved problems. And so ultimately we need folks that can grind hard on unsolved problems. And the funny thing about that, it doesn't take like a ton of experience because they're unsolved. So it's actually takes more grit and grind, just kind of doing things that, probably sound very much like, grinding through a hard undergrad or a hard, program, where some of the path maybe isn't quite known. But you keep getting after it, smash your head against the wall a few times, and then keep going. So it's very different than doing a job at, a lot of companies where somebody tells you what to do. The path is very clear. I know this programming language and therefore I'm fine. What we're looking for is more what are you going to do to kind of solve problems that no one else has solved. I know that's not really like a skill exactly, but it's almost more of a state of mind or just yeah, it's hard to quantify that exactly. But the funny thing about the current state of ML and the current state of AI, I tell people this all the time. It actually doesn't take longer than about a year to really learn the tip of the spear of what people are doing these days. But you really have to put in that year, and you don't need 10 years. You don't need because nobody's doing this hasn't been going on for a long time, and so yeah, I think it's just about that kind of dedicated grind toward what people are doing right now, and we want to see evidence of that.
Thanks for sharing that, Rob. It's interesting to see. It's similar in spirit to what Jenni said. It's not the usual stuff you would expect. Here's my GitHub repo of a whole bunch of code I wrote. Okay, cool. But there's something deeper that you're looking at. I'm going to move to Sarah and then to Nitu on this one. Sarah, the various different ventures that you're supporting and guiding, how does your guidance change perhaps, or what do you ask them to look for?
Yeah, so one thing I would add, agree with everything that Jenni and Rob shared, that I think makes it a little bit different today than when you're looking at resumes even, a few years ago. The expectation for candidates to be able to work with and alongside AI tools, that's not a nice to have, right? It's a given. You need to be able to do that in your day-to-day role. And when I'm looking at resumes, both when we're hiring internally and then a trend that I see across our companies that are hiring is now with all of these AI tools out there like Cursor and even Lovable, which makes it so easy for people that are non-technical to build apps and websites. When we're looking at people that are applying, it's not just resumes we're looking for. We're looking for portfolios and websites and projects and ability to see actually what you've built. And again, that's not really a nice to have anymore. I think it's more of an expectation that you're doing that in addition to everything that you've done in your experience, at least for startups, right? They want to see that you've done that and that you've built things on your own. So that's one thing that I would add that, again, I think it's always been important, but it's more important now than ever that we have all of these great tools to do that at scale.
That's good to know. AI tools and all are definitely very, very important. Nitu, your take.
I mean, Sarah stole the words right out of my mouth. So I would literally be echoing exactly what she said. So I'm going to give it two sentences. Basically, in the last 12 months, every single search I have for a software engineer, it is mandatory that you are using AI and that you understand what it is. If you are looking for a job and you're interviewing, there is going to be far less of a tolerance for coming in unprepared. So in the past, let's talk about the bubble of 21, 22, when everyone was dying to get engineers. You would accept somebody coming to an interview not being 100% prepared, not having looked at the company and understanding what they're doing, or having looked at the LinkedIn profile and understanding who you're speaking to. There was because the supply and demand economics, you are going to forgive that because your next good person might not come along for a month. That's gone. From an agency recruiter's perspective, there is no longer any tolerance for not being researched. And there is I would say, I'm going to say no tolerance for not understanding AI and not using it to improve your job. And that is for sure in the last 12 months. And to add a little bit on to Jenni had referenced it earlier, EQ, people skills, collaboration skills are far more important than they've ever been in the past. So just sitting in a corner, not talking to anybody, that's going away.
I'm happy to see the validation of these claims across the various perspectives that each of you have. I'll add a little bit of my own. As a technologist, when I'm interviewing people, I often end up running bar raisers at myKaarma for different roles. And two things that we have begun to do is you should expect to be required to share your screen and use ChatGPT or a tool of your choice and show us how you investigate ABC. Because we are trying to make sure, do you know how to do background research? And Googling us is no longer sufficient. You should have actually had a conversation with a bot about us and done background research, hopefully on me, before you came to talk to me. And secondly, Rob, kind of to go back to your point as well, in any kind of tech roles, and I know we'll talk more about this later, like having clear fundas, as you would say in IIT, having your fundamentals clear is so much more important because, yeah, you can't be a race car driver if you don't know how engines work and transmissions work and stuff. It's going to be tricky. only a slight pivot since we're talking about AI tools. It's becoming a bit of an AI arms race. Um, as somebody who's not deeper into it, but definitely seeing some impacts of it, we are definitely seeing AI tools being used to create job postings, to be scanned and to create custom resumes by other AI tools, to be filtered by also other AI tools. It's getting a little chaotic. I'm going to do a little bit of a ping pong here. Nitu, starting with you. How are how are you using these tools? But also, do you have any suggestions for our audience over here? Like, what can they do to stand out given all this
Yes, for sure.
froth?
So the first thing I would say is for the audience is to understand that as recruiters, whether we're agency or internal, we are dealing with getting thousands of resumes a day because of AI. So that actually can kind of be a little bit of a good thing for you, and it's also a bad thing. So the bad part is it's hard to be seen in a pile of 5,000. The good thing is that the vast majority of the resumes that we're getting are fake and not applicable. So you've got people being able to quick apply through Indeed or LinkedIn. And so the qualified candidate pool in certain sectors is actually a lot smaller than it might appear. So what you can do to stand out is verify your LinkedIn profile so that we know that you're real. Make sure that your resume isn't a standard ChatGPT format. The ATSs are going to pick up on it now. So they didn't before, but today, tool like there is a system called Ashby. It's a tool that a lot of companies use. Within that, it's able to pick up fraud. So it can actually take the 5,000 resumes down to 5 to 10. So if your resume looks like a fraudulent resume, meaning you copied and pasted or used something that was out there, you might not get through those systems. So you want to keep that in mind. And wherever you can verify that you're real, make sure that you do that. And make sure that your picture doesn't pop up as a stock picture. That would be my advice to make sure that you stand out. Or maybe not stand out, you just get through the basics of what's going on there.
Good point. Others, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to keep it flowing a little more. Rob, go ahead. You went off
Yeah,
mute first.
I can throw on the Ashby. We just turned on the fraud measuring, and probably like every other resume that comes through has fraud signals. And these range from like literally coming from a spam bot, like it's not a real person kind of resume. And I don't know what they're looking for, some kind of signal for maybe how that gets messaged, or, so there's a chunk of that. Then there's people that are kind of fraud, creating a new or a new email or a phone number just for application purposes. And it actually doesn't tie back to, it might tie back to a human, but it's something that you're actively like trying to game the job system. So it runs the gamut of, complete bots to people that are just trying to send out volume, but in different ways, or like send 3 resumes, but they all have they all have different emails. Um, my strong recommendation is, if you're a real human and you're doing any of these kind of tactics to like get through an applicant system or get noticed, you actually don't get noticed. You only get noticed for negativity. So nobody's going to call somebody when a resume gets sent in 4 times with 4 different emails. That's, it's trying to. I know it's trying to break. You're trying to break through the wall. You'll do better breaking through the wall with some type of just being unique, rather than how you can be unique. Going back to kind of one of the chats, put that you use Cursor on your resume. Put that you use Claude Code on your resume. I have, to this day, I don't know if I've ever seen one. I've looked at thousands and tens of thousands of resumes. I don't know if I've ever seen a section that says, these are the AI tools I use, which seems shocking that it's 2 years in here and nobody's ever put that on a resume. Put that on your resume rather than sending up, 4 new emails that, slightly different. Those will get you rejected immediately, even by the recruiter at the end. It's not just the ATS system; it's the recruiter at the end saying, "What's going on here?" So, keep it real is, I think, my first advice, and put what AI tools you're using, and you'll actually rise shockingly to the top just with those simple things.
Thanks, Rob. Jenni, and then Sarah. That's order I'm seeing here. Go ahead.
And continuing on what Rob has said, I've noticed a lot of candidates are utilizing, especially like ChatGPT, to really help write their resume. And I think that's a helpful assistance to use, but also going back in and rewording things to make it sound like you. Because recruiters are also, myself included, I can kind of tell if a resume has been written from ChatGPT or Gemini or all the other, options that are available. And you can notice very quickly, and at least my company, you automatically get disqualified if that's the case. So something to think about.
Good point. Sarah, your take. Any tips you're giving to your mentees?
Yes. On the side of the applicant tracking system, which there's kind of two ways candidates are found. Like Rob said, a lot of times recruiters are sourcing, so they're reaching out to you and finding you on LinkedIn. And then when you're applying to a role, the applicant tracking system is where the recruiter can see the thousands of resumes, right, that Rob and Jenni and Nitu probably get on a regular basis. I will recommend to everyone that you should not use the same resume when you're applying to different jobs. Highly recommend you should have a custom and tailored resume for each job that you're applying to. Now, you should never be lying about what you've done. If you don't match the skills and experiences they're looking for, you probably shouldn't apply, right? It's probably not the right fit. But especially if you've had a lot of different experiences, the different projects you want to highlight, maybe different skills you want to highlight are going to look different depending the role. So again, applying to jobs takes time, but you should be putting in the time to maximize your chances of being interviewed. And especially with Ashby and a lot of the other ATS systems, they can rank you to make it easier for the recruiters based on the relevancy. So recruiters don't need to go through everything in a row. So make sure you're relevant. Align your experience with what the job is looking for. Again, assuming that you've done those things, but tailor it appropriately with the different areas that you're wanting to highlight. And then there's also tools out there like Juicebox, which a lot of recruiters use to actually source and find candidates. And then when you're sourcing on LinkedIn, the best recommendation there is to make sure you have as much highlighted on your LinkedIn as you can. Not everything you have on your resume, it should be another part to the story. But again, highlight the projects you've done, the tools you work with, the AI tools that you use so that it maximizes your chances of being found.
Thanks. I have a follow-on question to the four of you, and also a quick note for the audience here. I'm seeing a whole bunch of questions being asked and being filtered by my team. Thank you very much. Please keep the questions coming. We're going to get to them. So in terms of using AI tools, something I have seen and thought about is which of the various publicly available AI chatbots is the best one where you can upload your own resume and the job posting and say, hey, ask me some questions. Do pre-filtering for me, like, can you please analyze my resume? Do you have recommendations for one of the publicly available? Is Gemini 3 right now better than GPT-5? Is Perplexity the best ones? If you have recommendations for the audience over here to do a pre-flight check before shooting that resume over? Sarah, I agree with you about having a custom resume. It would be nice if a bot could check my resume and tell me if it still kind of sucks compared to the job posting. Thoughts, ideas? What's the closest to Juicebox on the other side, if you've heard any stories?
It's such a great question. I don't have an answer. So hopefully someone else here does.
Yes, Rob, go ahead.
I can be a bit of a weirdo here and say that I wouldn't do that. And it's for the simple reason that what we're looking at, if you're looking for a job, and you're basically, there's a company looking for an employee to do a job and you're looking for that job, then that's a really good advice to match those things up as close, because the person on the end is looking for the keywords that you're supposed to supply. Cool. Like if that's what you're going for, then you should probably do that. And yeah, I don't know if Gemini would be better than OpenAI would be better than Claude. I think they'll all be going to be good in that regard. I would recommend more focusing on who are you as a person and who are you representing. And if that's changing based on a job, then that's a different category. That's different than the people that I'm looking for. Like sending a different resume. I know all you're doing is kind of changing a project here or a keyword there. But what I would propose is be as much like the unique human behind that resume as you can be, but then make that resume be the representation, the best representation of you, and then just throw it out there. And if the company wants you, then that's going to be a great fit. If they want somebody that had different keywords, that's not a great fit. And so that again, that might not be every company and every job that's out there, but it depends on. That would be my advice if I was,
Okay.
kind of diving into somebody, is like be your authentic self and then throw it in the mix. And if it lands, you're going to be in a good spot.
I like this a lot, Rob. I mean, the idea being, hey, can you please scan my resume and tell me, I don't know, in 10 words, describe me, kind of working backwards. Because sometimes when I've coached people myself, I see that they may be sometimes too hesitant to say, oh, yeah, I also surf, by the way. Or the fact that, of course, everyone uses cursor. Why should I write that I use cursor? That kind of a piece and that kind of feedback may sometimes help. And with that, let me open a different kind of worms. Small company, big company stuff, right? Because I'm sensing here, Rob, of course, you're looking very much for a select individuals starting off. Magic is small, medium, growing. Sarah, you are advising people at different sizes. Jenny, you, of course, slightly larger as an organization, which I have seen, for example, for us, we are looking in certain ways for lots of people in certain roles, lots of operational roles, and even in software engineers. It's interesting to see where, Rob, if you're looking for like just the one exact fit, or actually, I do have kind of 6 roles. If the right kind of person comes in for the wrong job, I can move them around. And there's a different perspective on this. How are you approaching in your various sizes, if you will, the similarities and differences of what you're looking for? I'm going to start with Jenny on this one. Let's go. Let's go big.
The similarities. I think kind of to what Rob was saying, we are looking for these unicorns, right? Obviously, they have to be technically sound, really strong, really intelligent, well-spoken, but having a resume that really shows their true colors and who they are and the exciting projects and products that they've worked on will really, set you apart.
So, Jenny, that said, how do you handle that at scale in terms of the number of positions? I'm assuming that NVIDIA is trying to fill more positions than Magic is today.
Mhm.
How do you wrangle that trade-off between I do want the unicorn. Rob has maybe the luxury of waiting a little longer for the unicorn to show up, whereas you're like, okay, I need to go dig into this because I have a whole bunch of unicorns to find. So how do
Right.
you address that at scale?
I think a lot of it is having a really good sourcing and recruiting team that has the bandwidth, that truly understands the technology, what we're looking to build, all the criteria of what the hiring manager needs, and also the personality cultural fit for that specific team. Really, we're truly understanding those pieces so that we can then go out and look for those people out in the world.
Nice. It's a great time to be a recruiter then. Nitu, your perspective on this. Do you get recs for big, small, medium? How does that work?
I mean, it's all different sizes. So on the agency recruiter side, in tech, it was probably a bloodbath in 23, 24 because there wasn't a lot of funding, particularly in the VC market. And then with all the AI buzz, everyone was looking to cut costs and look to maximize the teams that they have. So you probably went through a bloodbath on the agency side, meaning you didn't have a lot to work. We have seen a rebound in tech in 2025 as agency recruiters, but it's not, I have 20 Ruby positions, I have 20 Node positions, I have 10 SDET roles. It's you really are working on behalf of whatever you can get, to put it simply. So what does that mean to the candidate? And if you're looking for a job, you need to be in front of an agency recruiter like myself really quickly. And timing is going to be important in order to be seen and to get that job. So don't know that I really answer that exactly directly, but from an agency recruiter perspective, I want to be direct and transparent and say that we are grateful to have the work after 23, 24. It is not in one specific area. We're going to be working whatever our clients are willing to pay us for.
Good to know. Sarah, you have skills which are, I'm sure, very, very early stage.
Yes, yeah, early
to growth?
stage to growth stage. I would say the biggest difference, because I mean, I think across every stage, again, people want to see people that are entrepreneurial and take ownership, motivated, are going to be a good add to the culture. I think the biggest difference in terms of maybe the profile is the earlier stage, really you're looking for a generalist, right? Whether you're technical or non-technical, you want someone who can wear all of the hats and maybe they can work across different systems and tools. And then as you get to larger stages, you start to want people who are more deep specialists across different functions or different domains. So that's probably the biggest difference I see across the different stages of our companies. But again, always looking for people that are going to be builders at heart and going to be, high ownership and motivated.
Okay. I'm going to go around the table and ask two questions. Oh, Nitu's hand went up. Nitu, go ahead, please.
Yes, I think Sarah brought up some really good points. I was just going to follow on and also say right now with hiring, most people are going to have the attitude that they're looking to hire for the top 10%, no matter what it is, whether it's a small company or a large company. So one of the things that you're going to want to pay attention to is being able to explain your resume and your background. So if you've had 5 jobs in 5 years, you're really going to need to be willing to explain that. If you had a career pivot, you're going to need to be able to explain it. So you're just going to need to make sure that you're, to the best that you can, not taking things personally, even though I know it's personal when you get rejected. It's hard to say, but you're going to have you're going to need to develop some really thick skin and make sure that you're really able to articulate your background well, no matter what stage you're at.
That's a perfect segue into the question I was going to ask. So I'd like to ask each of you for one tip. Could be very obvious or could be something that you have seen and you may think that the audience here may not have seen, for 2 segments. We're going to start with the segment of the fresh grad, very early career person who's looking for a job in this chaotic job market where on a very extreme way people can I can have ChatGPT run by my senior engineer do the job of the new guy who's trying to look for a job, which is a little unfair and a little real at the same time. But yeah, let's focusing on the people who are looking for a job in their early careers. One suggestion each. I'm
Reach
gonna
out.
call on Nitu first. Go ahead.
Reach out. So, everyone likes a hustler. Everyone likes someone who's aggressive. Everyone likes someone super proactive. It's hard not to love somebody who with that kind of energy. So, as an entry-level person entering an uncertain job market, the best thing that you can do is to figure out who the job reports to. What that means is who is going to be your boss. So, as we're recruiters, but we're not your boss, you can reach out to us. You're going to have a better, and maybe you'll get a response if we're in a good mood or we got a minute that day. But it's impossible for us to reach out to every single person that emails us or contacts us on LinkedIn. It's just not physically possible. So let's say you're an engineer, the person that your job will most likely report to will be either the manager of engineering, the director of engineering, a VP of engineering, a CTO, or a CEO. Depends on the company size. Write a custom message to each one of them on LinkedIn. So that would be my number one tip. Be proactive, be aggressive, reach out to the person that the job reports to. Do not put an application in and wait.
Thank you. Jenny's hand went up, so Jenny gets to talk next. Go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of picking back on that, I think as you're in school, whether it's in school, internship, or getting your first job out of school, realizing that every person that you are interacting with in that process could be somebody that gets you into your next company or into your next role. And so, really building your network at a very early stage, especially for myself, is where pretty much all my jobs I've ever had were through somebody that I know. And obviously, we're hard work and all kinds of other things as you go along, but it's all referrals. And I think at NVIDIA specifically, I think it's about 45% of our hires are all through referrals.
Such a good point. Get to know people, referrals. I'm going to come back and ask for some more specifics there. Rob, go ahead.
So I'm gonna agree with everything that was just said, but there are ways to do that very, very poorly, and there are ways to do that very, very well. We have hired 2 people who we would not have otherwise. One was a 19-year-old kid that dropped out of undergrad, who his mom saw a podcast of our CEO and said, that's like my boy. And literally, she had him watch the podcast and then send an email to our CEO that was very heartfelt, very real, very authentic. Um, and we hired him in a bit of a what would you call it, experiment,
Hmm.
uh, to see what we could do there. He's been amazing. He's now been here for 9 months to 10 months, and one of the members of the research team is not 20 years old yet. So that our chief of staff sent a similar note to our CEO. That's very different than I'm going to spam everybody in the company with the same note, and then I'm also going to send emails to everybody at the company with the same note. That immediately gets you rejected. And so, yeah, just be very careful on the approach. It needs to be authentic, it needs to be personal, it needs to be real. And not the bot generated that actually happens all the time. So, I don't want to, Nitu's very good message to get kind of boticized. And so that would be the only difference I'd say.
I
Thanks,
love
Rob. And
that,
go ahead.
Rob. What beautiful stories for the audience to hear. They saw a podcast, they connected, they reached out authentically. Thank you for tagging on because I do not want anyone to bot out. That would not work.
Yes, and people, don't create bots for your mom, pretending to be your
Yeah.
mom,
Right.
sending emails. Okay,
No,
don't take the
that's
bad
not the
lesson from
story.
what Rob just said. I would also like to remind people the old rules still apply. If you send the same email, like I'm sitting in my office right now, our co-founders sit right there. We talk. And if you're like, have you seen an email from this guy? Oh, actually, I did too. Oh, show me what you got. Wait a second.
Adding on to that, all of the applicant tracking systems track everybody's email. So it literally, if somebody applied and then sent a message to 10 people at the company, you see that in your thread of your profile. So your profile then has shown, I applied an hour ago, and then I spammed everybody with the same message an hour later, and you basically immediately get rejected. So yeah, just be careful is all I'm saying. Getting back
Wonderful
to the
point.
one thing that you were at, like
Yeah.
one tip, get out there in open source. Like Nitu is probably the most effective. Like that's where you're going to maybe land a job if you really get that, if you do that well. But people will find you if you do a hard thing or make an interesting contribution to an open source repo that especially like in the AI space, like everybody's using the same, we're using we're building tools that don't exist and then using those tools to help push the field forward. If you make a contribution, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are. If you fix a bug that's been long standing in Nickel or Cutlass or Triton or PyTorch or I can go down the line, but like if you fix something or add something, people find you, and that's a good way to be sourced as opposed to being kind of in that application funnel. And so I think go out and do a hard thing rather than try to figure out which bot should send your resume where. I think it'd be better, your time is better spent like building and doing and creating than kind of playing the game that might have changed, the resume sending game.
Open source. That's a very good point, Rob. Sarah.
Yes, big +1 to everything that's been said. I couldn't agree more. One thing I would say, don't let yourself think that because you're a certain age or you have a certain number of years of experience that that's a reason that you're not going to have a chance. We talk to so many founders, so many students that are still in school or even have dropped out of school, and that can be your competitive advantage, right? You're bringing fresh energy, you're bringing a unique perspective. You might have different ways of doing things. And I think carrying off of Rob's point, we're talking to people and seeing people that are still in school that you would think that they'd had years of experience because of everything that they've done, right? They've contributed to all of these things on GitHub. They've built all these projects. They've done, full-time internships, right? Where they're coming in with what seems like real work experience, even though technically they were interning. So you're getting a lot of exposure at a young age. So think about, again, how can you meet people? How can you be involved in different organizations or groups on campus? Or again, meet the right people, get in the right rooms to help yourself land where you want to go next and get exposure to building when you can. So that's the only thing that I would add. But yes, so much of it is who you know, and then how can you get that experience without it having to be a full-time job? And you can do that on your own.
Such a good point, Sarah. And incidentally, just yesterday I was talking to somebody, undergrad student at a UC, I'm not going to say which one, and we were discussing, and it was interesting for me to see how energetic the student was, and at the same time how unaware he was of certain things. Like it was me coaching him, and my friends, part of the tradition at IIT is to the whole scared straight thing, right? As seniors, you would teach our juniors saying, hey, this is how it is. Welcome to your first year of college. Life's gonna suck. You'll get used to it. So this is part of that hard talk, my friends. Play with the toys. So I had to show him, hey, you can use Gemini. And he was like, whoa, in Gemini canvas mode, this thing can be formed. I'm like, oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. And then I go into like full on canvas mode. And I literally had create me a one-page website, which is a web app for buying fruit. That was my prompt. And sure enough, it makes me a nice clickable mock-up. And I could see his eyes get bigger. I'm like, oh, you're liking this, huh? Let's get cursor. He's like, yeah, my friends have told me about this cursor thing, because something I want to kind of shake you guys a little bit about is those of you who are studying, like, I'm a top ass Python developer. I'm doing JavaScript, Angular, this, that, the other for the last 3-4 years. It's not going to cut it. So we opened cursor, literally said one-page web app for Pac-Man. And I could see him see the classic cursor scroll go and create the code. And I was like, just open the page in a browser. His eyes got big. And then I was like, okay, go play with these tools some more. Here's a couple of YouTube playlists that I have found which are useful to get your core concepts straight, and go and study. Sarah, one thing that I think you alluded to, which I want to really reinforce, the benefit of very early career, especially if you're actually in college right now, is you have the time. You don't have a boss right now who's waiting for deadlines while you're also trying to upskill yourself for your next job or whatever. And please put in that time, look around, ask around. If nothing, ask your favorite chatbot what you should study to get your concepts clarified. Otherwise, no, you will not be cutting it. So lean in hard, please. Switching to the other piece of the career ladder, if you will. If you're somebody who is mid-career to late career, and if you're looking for a new position, either because you want to or because you're being made to, suggestions over there. I'm going to start with Jenni at this time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think at that point, that is the best time to use your referrals. Working within your network, either people that have left your company, people that you've previously worked with, going through your LinkedIn and looking at your real connections and who works at the places that you want to go to, and having coffee chats, lunches, and really building out the network and letting people know I'm on the market again. I want to look, and really showing your talents.
That's a very good point. If you are deep in your career, hopefully you know some people by now.
Yeah.
And that should hopefully work.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. I think the biggest difference if you're late in your career versus just starting out is, to Jenni's point exactly, you have the benefit of you've worked at these great companies, right? Whatever company it might be, you know all of these people. So when you're applying to a job, exactly like Jenni said, go and see who do you know at that company. Even if you don't know the person that well, oftentimes companies have referral bonuses. People might be incentivized. Reach out and say, hey, you're interested. You want to learn more about what it's like working there. People love to talk about themselves, and people are a lot more willing to help than you might think. So send an outreach, ask to talk to someone, learn about what their role's like. And yeah, use the benefit of your network. I think that's the biggest advantage that you have when you're making a pivot. And then the only other thing that I'd add that I think Nitu highlighted earlier is, when you are making a career move, whether it's in the same field or if it's a transition, being able to share your story. So why have you made different moves? Why are you wanting to make this different move? Why are you especially excited about this company in particular? So making sure your narrative really aligns with you and who you are and where you want to go, I think is also really important.
Thank you. Moving to Nitu and then Rob.
The number one recommendation I would have is to read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Your network is your net worth. So if you have a network already and you can expand upon it, you're good, right? You just continue to build that network, nurture it, keep in touch, find ways to be on people's radars. LinkedIn makes it pretty easy. Anytime you see someone post something, you can say, hey, great post. It's how do I find ways to stay on the radar? How do I find ways to stay in touch? The problem is, if you have no network and you don't, you were in college and you just had a good time for 4 years. Nothing wrong with that. I get it. Jenni's advice is really sage for college students, and it's really something that there should be a course taught on how to network. And a lot of people don't have that. So if you're hearing her and you're in school or you have kids or you're looking to influence people, I think that's some of the best advice I've ever heard. Every person that you're interacting with in undergrad could potentially lead you to a job. So paying attention to that early. But if you're someone that didn't pay attention to it, or like me, I had a great time in college and then I moved out west and I didn't have a network and I started at ground zero, that book will really help you. So again, I'm going to repeat it again, just to make sure I got it. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a great place to start. And that would be my advice.
Thanks, Nitu. Rob, go ahead.
+1 on everything there. The other thing that I would throw out is to be super, super thoughtful and intentional about what you want to do. The first interview or first question I ask every single person that I interview is, what do you want to do next? Like what is an ideal next thing you want to do? And it's one thing when you just graduated and you might not know exactly what that is, but when you've been doing this for 10 or more years and you don't have an answer for that question, which is essentially like you're grown, like you should know what you want to do. You can network all you want. You can, ping all of your old colleagues all you want. But if you don't know what you want to do, they can't help you. And so really being intentional about like, what do you want to do? Very thoughtful about what's next. What does the next, 3, 4, 5 years look like? And the place that I'm at kind of help that path. You should be able to narrow down your job search to very specific, jobs, companies, areas, and then you're able to tell a much better story to anyone you're networking with. I'm just surprised that people don't do that more. And so just, yeah, network and get out there, but then help the people that you're contacting. Half the time I'll meet with somebody, that's networking and they're looking for what's next, but then they can't tell you what's next. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to tell you? How am I supposed to help that problem? I can make intros, but you haven't told me where I should intro you. And so don't go out and blindly, kind of network, go out and intentionally network. And that's going to help you get a lot more doors open.
That's a very good point, Rob. I think what I'm sensing over here, and I'm going to represent my fellow techies, my fellow IITians and others, and call out the fact that unfortunately, especially growing up in India as a classic IITian, you're not taught these things. You're taught how to solve math problems extremely well, math, physics, science, chemistry, this, that, the other, but not how to network. And sometimes networking is also seen across as a dirty word. I would be happy to say that we are here today and I'm learning so much from you because Nitu and I got together because Jason Bosco and I met up at an event at USC where I had volunteered to help out at the startup evaluation contest and stuff. Like that's what networking looks like, it's like the word sales often gets a bad rap because of sleazy salespeople, don't get me wrong. But there's also a good way to say, hey, you're always selling your ideas and stuff. And I think soft skills are something I'm sorry to say me and my fellow technologists definitely have a lot of room to grow on. And what I'm hearing from Nitu is that she'll be running a workshop on how to win friends and influence people later, which PanIIT will be absolutely happy to sponsor. And on a more serious note, yes, at PanIIT USA, we do want to host those sessions, those learning sessions, those coaching sessions, because I do have empathy for the ex-CTO of a founder CTO of a company whose company got acquired and had been working for the same company for 20 years and suddenly has found themselves out of a job. True story, actually, somebody I was speaking with. And because that person hasn't had to network, okay, within the company, okay, fine. I was keeping my head down, doing my work. Now, what do I do? On behalf of the audience, I want to be clear, no, that stuff is not very obvious to folks in terms of how to. So Nitu, thanks so much for the book recommendation. I would also encourage people, when shameless self-publicity over here, go to iit.org, volunteer for something. Spend some time with some people, organize a bridge competition. We have a very active team. We have local chapters. Go spend time. You'll get to know people. They'll get to trust you that you will get stuff done. And hopefully also coach you. Rob, that's such a good point about, do you even know what you want to do? Sometimes we don't. I just want to do my job in Excel every day and suddenly I'm out. It's a shock to the system. And I definitely have much empathy for those roles. But your point is still extremely valid. And I love the attitude, by the way, Rob. This is how my seniors would talk to me back in college and beyond. So yes, Please give it to me and the audience here straight. The next topic I have is in terms of role-specific impacts. We did talk a little bit more about the developer or technical roles. There's also many people, especially as you go later in the careers, in non-technical roles. I was director of sales at a certain place. I was doing operations, doing HR. I was a recruiter. What are the tips and tricks for the non-directly technical roles that you would have? And I'm going to start with Sarah over here.
Tips and tricks. I mean, I think the benefit of where we are today with all of the tools that we have is it's able to increase the efficiency of how everyone works, whether you're technical or not, right? I mean, I'm using different AI tools every day, whether they're sourcing tools or screening tools, or even if they're just, questions I'm asking ChatGPT or Gemini. So we're able to use these tools to work a lot faster. And I think the one benefit I'll say in addition to that is it allows us to be a lot more strategic in our roles because we're not having to spend as much time on the administrative parts because again, there's so many great AI tools out there to do that. So whether you're technical or not, I think the benefit can really be the same of how are you using these tools to be able to, again, take away maybe more of the admin work that you hopefully didn't like doing as much and focus more time on the strategic work and really being a thought partner to the different teams. So that's one thing I would say, but I think it's probably the same for tech and non-tech.
And Sarah, staying on that for just a little bit longer, something I have seen some of my colleagues do, which I appreciate, is tied into the whole what do I post on LinkedIn to get noticed kind of a piece, where I have seen some of my operational colleagues actually talk about, hey, here's a pro tip. If you are just like me and work in customer ops, try to use this prompt in your thing, or I built a custom GPT or whatever. That has the two birds, one stone effect of A, you get to use it, B, you talk about it, hopefully get noticed.
Totally.
Does that sound in the right
Yeah,
track?
definitely. And sharing your learnings. Like I think there's so many great different groups and community groups out there. Like I'm a part of one that's all the VC talent partners. I got connected to Nitu right through the network that I have at Upfront. So really thinking about who do you know, how can you share learnings and create a group of, if you're the only ops person at a startup, or maybe you're one of a few, how can you build a peer network of people that are at other companies that maybe you meet with once a month, right? Where you can share learnings, see what other people are using, maybe incorporate that into your own workflow. So again, I think the benefit of having so many great resources, but it can be really overwhelming because there's just so much out there. You don't know where to begin. So to your point, exactly, I think leaning on your network, sharing what you learn and learning from the peers that you have around you.
Wonderful. I see Jenny is off mute, so I'm going to call on her.
Yeah, definitely. I piggybacking off what Sarah said, I definitely agree with all of that. Also, another thing, as you get into later into your career, whether it's non-tech or tech, especially the internal recruiters that you're interacting with, maybe for a job 10 years ago or 5 years ago, keeping those contacts because likely those people are still recruiting, whether it's in that same company or another company. That is also a really important network of somebody that will get you in front of the hiring managers if it is a match. And so really building those networks too. I've hired recently a candidate that I had talked to 12 years ago, but they were really good at checking in, keeping in contact, and just waiting for me to have the right job for them and then for them to be looking. And it worked out great. So yeah.
That is, Jane, that's such a good point. And I want to re-emphasize for those who missed the earlier part of this presentation, because I know some of you joined in late. Classic IIT fashion. Shame on you, shame on me. We started this conversation off with, why do we have four recruiters? Aren't they all the same? And I'll call it out. Unfortunately, sometimes recruiters don't get the respect that I believe they deserve. I rely so deeply on the recruiters that we have internally to help us make the decisions and decide stuff. So keeping in touch with the folks who helped you get a job and sometimes did not help you get a job, whichever way it is such a great point, because 10 years later, hopefully they have also moved up in their careers and that would work. Absolutely. I'm going to call on Nitu next. Nitu, non-technical roles and such. What should people do?
I think it's important to understand where whatever job it is that you're in, where it's going. So I would say for non-technical roles, let's HR, marketing, PR, ops. I mean, there's so many of them. You need to understand what that market looks like and where you can evolve your career to. So you need to be your own advocate. There's a lot out there, whether it's TikTok or Instagram. You can find communities that talk about here are the jobs that AI is going to create. Hey, if you're a marketing person, this is what you need to be doing to be of value and be employed. So I would say the most important thing is understanding what your job can evolve to and what might get automated out. I don't want to scare anyone, but there are going to be places that you might not want to be. So if you're a copywriter, what does that look like? You know, if you're a technical writer, what is that going to look like? If you're sales, meaning you directly contribute to revenue, like me, you're right. I mean, sales is a pretty good job right now. If you are directly impacting revenue, you're fine. You're not going anywhere. You just have to decide if you want to do that and if that's the career that you want. But that would be an area, for example, everyone's always going to need. There's going to be a lot of other areas outside of technology that can be impacted, but you don't have to be impacted if you can understand the skills that you need to pick up and what that could evolve to. So if you're a CTO that hasn't looked for a job in 20 years and you're finding it difficult. Now I went back to tech and non-tech, but what about prompt engineering? What about context engineering? If you're a product engineer, maybe you should be a product manager. Maybe you should be picking up vibe coding, right? And evolving yourself into that. So instead of waiting, be your own advocate, do your own research, stay on top of these trends. Look for websites like PathMatch that will tell you this is what you need to do to be in this career. And just don't wait. Don't wait to get got. Ain't nobody coming to save you, so you need to save yourself.
Wise words. Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll tell a little. So I'm in my role today as a non-technical person because of everything we're talking about here. And a bit unexpected. So when I was leaving OpenAI, I of course was hitting the obvious places that you like. Okay, you apply to Anthropic, you get in touch with the people you know at Anthropic, you who do I know over at Inflection? You know, you're going down the standard. Okay, this is what's next. This is what I would be looking at. The reason I'm where I'm at now at a company I'd never heard of at the time was I pinged one of the researchers, one of the 5 turned down offers at OpenAI that was now at Anthropic, and I pinged her and you know to get the in at Anthropic, like, hey, what are you guys looking for on the talent side? And she told me, I think my friend who's the CEO over at this other company is looking for you. And I looked at the careers page of this 8-person company, and they needed an operations generalist, which is not me. But their operations were recruiting at that time. And so even though the title was drastically bad, even though the company was something I'd never heard of, I sent my resume in. An hour later, the CEO contacted me. A couple days later, we're having lunch or coffee, and I fell in love with him in the first minute. And now I'm here 3 years later, building a company with him. So from an offer turned down, which you could look at as a negative, it doesn't matter where that connection was or that relationship was made. Use them, and not in a Machiavellian way, but utilize them, and you never know where that path is going to take you. But again, going back to that, be intentional about what you want. Talk to the people that you know, and then you never really know where you land. But good things usually happen.
That's such a good point, Rob. I think the good things usually happen piece is something I'd like to, again, suggest to my fellow technologists over here who may be a little too shy, maybe a little too cerebral for their own good. It's okay to ask somebody for a half-an-hour chat. In this era of Zoom, everybody has figured out how to actually use their webcams, which is amazing. So you can have a half-an-hour face-to-face conversation. Please do it over video where possible. And I would say, Rob, it's okay to even ask them to coach you to figure out what you want to do in life. If your intention is, I want coaching to figure out my intention, that's a fair intention. In a light conversation like this, it's good because referrals matter so much. And for those of you who think that referrals, like fake referrals, by simply DMing somebody on LinkedIn to be like, hey, buddy, can you add me as a referral on your own? It's going to get caught pretty soon because I know I am now raising the bar very clearly. Like if any of my team members refers somebody that they don't really know, I'm like, hey, cut it out. just because, at least have a chat with the person, because it has to carry your name then. Don't just, because I could see spam coming in even through like the simplistic referral pipelines and such. We are entering the last half hour of our session, and I'm going to start with some questions that come from the audience. I'm going to start with the tricky one. In terms of the fears we discussed about AI will take my job and so on and so forth, as recruiters, talking about efficiency and hiring pipelines and how they can be better and faster, what are each of you doing to bolster against that very real threat in terms of your respective careers? How are you becoming faster, more efficient, more aware? Jenni, go ahead.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, I mean, if we're in this AI space as a recruiter or really any other job that you are working in, you really have to dive in, take the time, and really understand AI and understand what are the tools for my job that are going to benefit me, make me more efficient, and streamline everything that I do. And then I think the other part too, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, is the emotional intelligence. Like I've spent a lot of time working on my communication skills so that I could be more effective in the workplace, or being a better manager, or supporting other people and mentoring. I think those are the things that AI cannot do. And so building those character skills will help you be, more effective, and also poached in the next, for the next job.
Such a good point, Jenni. If I may, I'm going to stay on this for a quick moment, because the pattern I have seen with people who have been using these tools is that things become so obvious to them that they forget to say exactly which tool or what prompt. So Jenni, what specific tools or prompts or books or podcasts and stuff have you used to upskill yourself, even on the soft skills side, for example?
On the soft skills side, I think for me, I mean, my biggest hero personally and professionally is Brene Brown. She's excellent books for your professional life and then also for your personal life, and they really do bleed into each other.
So the Atlas of the Heart would be a good one then?
Atlas of the Heart. What was the other? Staying Grounded, the newest one, has also been really helpful because it has personal stories. So it gives you even further, deeper insight into, how to be a good manager, how to be a good colleague. Also, Daring Greatly, and about vulnerability. And I think the thing that people don't realize, especially as you're building connections, wanting to build these referrals in the future, being vulnerable in the workplace, sharing a personal side of you so someone can really connect to that piece of you, to then maybe remember, 5 years down the line, I'm hiring for a JavaScript engineer. Oh, that person that shared this story with me, let me reach out to them. That's how you mentally get connected to people.
That is sage advice to us technologists. Absolutely. Be a little more vulnerable, it'll help. Sarah, Rob, and then Nitu.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jenni. In terms of development, I think one thing to always be thinking about, whether it's how you're incorporating AI tools, or to Jenni's point, how you're, optimizing and growing your soft skills and professional career, think about where you are today and where you want to go. So, where you are now isn't likely the endpoint for most of us on this call. So thinking about, with the role that you're in and maybe the role that you want next, how can you meet the right people, get as much experience, get as much exposure to help you get to that next point? And a lot of it you can do on your own, right? There's so many great business books out there and great podcasts that you can listen to, maybe tools that you can get versed in. But a lot of it, you can find a really great coach maybe that you work with. It could be a career coach. I know plenty that we recommend to our founders and our companies to help you with your professional development. It could just be building your network and, again, talking to people at other companies and learning what they're doing and how you can incorporate that. But I think always thinking about where you want to go next, and then how can you get as much experiences as you can in your current role to help you get there. So that's something that I constantly think about, in the role that I'm in, I'm getting exposure to so many great people. Again, I love my role. I'm not planning on going anywhere, but how can I maximize and make use of that network and all the experiences that I'm getting now?
Such a good point, Sarah. And in terms of coaches and such, in our interest of being specific, I'm sure you can recommend specific coaches, but also for the greater public, can I ask ChatGPT in a certain prompt, or do I have to get a better help subscription? Like, what would be a good way for somebody who may not have the resources to actually hire a coach?
Yeah, one great way is do the research. I mean, I'm happy to provide recommendations if anyone wants and name specific people. A lot of people post pretty regularly on LinkedIn and have kind of a presence there, so you can always check that and ask people. A lot more people work with different career coaches than you might think. So ask your network, look on LinkedIn. I always think starting there is a great place to begin.
Wonderful. If you have a couple names, Sarah, please do share them
I do.
today. That
Yes,
way our audience can go follow a couple authors on LinkedIn. Uh,
perfect.
Rob,
Yeah, I wish I used AI more in my current workflow, but my current workflow is basically 50 interviews a week and just like this. So I do use an AI note taker called MetaView that has been helpful in
Mhm.
gathering info that way. But like, yeah, I haven't written a job description in 4 years probably. So I guess that's another one that's like, okay, so there's things that kind of go away in the, or immigration, paperwork. It still needs a wet signature, but man, you can automate a lot of things like the boilerplatey stuff. I use a lot of, AI in jobs training plans that I'm building or things like that for somebody that I'm getting a visa for. So long story short, I use AI and ChatGPT and different tools, but yeah, a lot of what I do is still just kind of the person to person communication. Um, the best podcast I know for the like AI, AGI, what's going on right now is the Dwarkesh Patel podcast. It's a really good one. He has amazing guests, and the content is very. He gets into the weeds with people, and so yeah, that's it. If I could only listen to one podcast, it's that one.
Thank you very much, Rob. And Sarah, quick check-in with you as well. Do you have specific names that have now come up to your mind since we
Yes,
have the
well, for
Dwarkesh Patel?
coaches, one that I highly recommend, and Nitu knows her too, is Megan Healy. She does coaching. I used to work with her at Upfront, and I can't recommend her enough. She's very passionate about it. So that's one name that I would strongly recommend. She started to post more on LinkedIn, so you could probably check out some of the stuff that she's been posting.
Great.
And then, yeah, to Rob's point, I realized I didn't answer with specific tools. For sourcing, I use Juicebox, obviously use ChatGPT, Gemini, but yeah, I think a lot of it is really like, who do you know and how can you learn from them?
Wonderful. Nitu, over to you. What's your workout routine, if you will?
Well, I think what you asked is and I might have gotten it wrong, but are you asking what are we doing to ensure our
You,
jobs?
yeah, yourself. I mean, how are you upskilling
Okay,
yourself on a daily basis?
cool. So I'm going to answer it a little bit differently.
Mhm,
I'm agency side, you can also call it sales,
mhm,
revenue. That's essentially my core job. So as I had mentioned earlier, 23 and 24 were a bloodbath
yeah.
after a huge bubble in 21, 22. So I sat down with myself and you do have to face your fears. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. Feelings and emotions are valid. Then you got to do something with them. So for me, I sat down and was like, okay, this is this is kind of scary, you know. Wow, I actually have to go out there and network and hustle. I mean, I'm always networking and I'm always hustling, but it was a kind of after 25 years of having inbound referrals, it was just like, oh, okay, we're here. So what I had to first do was face my fear, be vulnerable. I definitely have talked to all three people on this call, probably Rob most of all, really. I also leaned on Megan Healy a bit during this time frame. And for me, what helped and which I will share with all of you is there's always going to be jobs. There's always going to be industries. The first thing I did was say, let's follow the money. For example, there is going to be 5 trillion in AI over the next 5 years. Not just AI, but the infrastructure behind it, data centers. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you need to be a data center engineer? No, maybe you could be somebody that gets into cooling. What about blue collar jobs, right? Like, what about trade schools? What about all of the things that are out there that you have not heard about yet? What about going to Cal State Fullerton to become a nurse anesthesiologist? They make like 500K, right? So there is so much still that's out here. Or you can take it more simply. What about healthcare? Is healthcare going to
Mhm.
represent half of the total US economy in 10 to 15 years? Some people believe so. So I'm going to answer it and say for myself, what am I doing to safeguard myself? I'm opening my eyes. I'm looking at all the different possibilities that are out there. I'm going to follow the money. If software engineering dies in 5 years, I'm being dramatic, so don't take that
Hey,
seriously.
that's what Rob's talking
But
about, so I don't
yeah,
know.
but if it's gone, so what? What else out there can you do? You're a smart person, you've done this. What can you translate it to? Hey, maybe I need to go back to school for 2 years and be an airplane mechanic. I know those jobs aren't going anywhere. Instead of being afraid, follow the money. And it's what I was saying earlier, be an advocate for yourself, research, look at what's out there. There's so much. So once I did that, what am I doing to safeguard myself? Well, listen, I can go place plumbers, I can place janitors, I can help you guys switch from whatever you're doing to go into the trades. I have no idea why the trades disappeared 10, 20, 30 years ago when I was in school. If there's such a high demand for it, there's amazing money, there's stability. The robot's not, no robot's coming and doing my house. If I'm going to go do a rebuild, I don't want a robot doing rebuilds. No, no, thank you. I want to see people. I don't want a robot in my kitchen. Like, yes, I get they're coming, but that's not coming in my house in the next 20, 30 years. So that made me feel better, and it forced me to open my eyes and say, you know what? Let's not just be a recruiter that's focused on tech and product anymore. Let's get outside. Let's make sure that you can do everything. So what I would impart is, what am I doing to make myself valuable? Is what every single one of you should do, is open your eyes, look at the entire world, look at where all of the money is going and what that could be, and don't get caught in what you thought you were supposed to be. Start to embrace change, understand that you don't know everything. I mean, for all of us, we don't know where things are going to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Be okay with it. Follow the money, adapt. Maybe you switch jobs every 3 to 5 years, but just be okay with change and face the fear and the vulnerability, and you'll be fine.
Thank you for being so open, Nitu. That's very, very sweet and very kind of you. One of my favorite books is Good to Great. It's the Confront the Brutal Facts is an important phase in the journey. Another interesting question I got from the audience was, let's say I now have landed my first interview, my first round with a recruiter. And I know we touched on aspects of this topic through and through, but around the table, I'm going to start with Rob, Sarah, Jenni, and then back to Nitu. What should a candidate do? I don't know, one thing I can do to make the recruiter's life a little easy, given now I know I'll be speaking to one. Rob.
Yeah, be able to answer that question. What do you want to do? That's a big one for me. Some more specifics would be, make sure you look at it's one thing if you're working at an NVIDIA or Microsoft or, Meta and everybody knows the company. If you're interviewing with a company that's, smaller or a startup and you haven't looked at the website, like that's such a turnoff. And so yeah, it doesn't matter how you got the interview. It doesn't matter. It literally takes 5 minutes before the interview to look at. Don't say you're too busy to look at a website. So, look at the website. Why is this something that's interesting to you, and what do you want to do? I know those are basic questions, but the fact that I can talk to every other person and not those three basics be covered means there's obviously room for improvement there.
Thank you. And who's next? Was it Jenni? No, Sarah, go ahead.
I would say yes, I totally agree with what Rob said. I think the two biggest things, if you are lucky enough that you get that first interview with a recruiter, one, to Rob's point, do your research, show up prepared, show up on time, and then practice ahead of time. Practice your pitch. No one comes in and is automatically always going to be the best communicator. So it might sound silly, but rehearse, right? Like be true to who you are and have your story and your narrative down, but practice it a few times. Come prepared with questions, get to know who the recruiter is, do your research on them ahead of time, do your research on the company, but show your genuine interest and be able to articulate why you're excited about that company specifically and why you think you're going to be a great addition to the team.
Thanks, Sarah. Jenni, and then Nitu.
Yeah, definitely agree with all of those things, and kind of adding on top of that, research and being able to articulate your past, what you've done, and being able to share your passion for what you do and what you want to do in the future, I think is so big. I think, especially in my world, we are looking at folks that are going to build a better positive culture. We want somebody that is bright and that can share and that is passionate and excited to come to work every day and passionate about what they do. And that's really important for us.
That's such a good point, Jenny. So if somebody is doing their research about NVIDIA and is about to speak with you and they don't talk about culture, they're like, yeah, not enough research done.
Exactly.
This video will be on YouTube and it'll be transcribed, I'm sure, by Google. So people who will look will find this piece. Nitu, over to you. And this is a very different kind of recruiter if someone gets to you or your team. So what should they prepare? How can they prepare best?
Number one, don't be mean. I ain't talking to you if I get a nasty email.
Wait, you get mean people?
Maybe just start with, let me just start there. That is not going to make me want to talk to you. So have the emotional awareness of who you're talking to, and understand where you are. Now, this is going to sound probably not great. I don't know how to put it any other way. So I'm just going to say it. There's always a hierarchy and there's always, you want to call it energy, however you want to communicate it. When there's two people, there's going to be one that's busier than the other. There's someone that's asking for something or wants something from the other. So if you're in a situation where you're looking to get something from someone, be on time, be courteous, be researched, fit into their window. And I'm not saying that the other person is more important to you. What I'm trying to say, as a human being, there's no such thing. We're all equal. But in context of work and wants and desires, you need to understand the emotional quotient. That's EQ, right? Like you need to be EQ. So I would say understand who you're talking to, understand look at what their schedule is, not just what you want, and make it easy for them. Slot into them. Don't be late. Be courteous, be nice. If the person that's busier than you reschedules, has something that they have to go to, understand that it's not personal. It's that they have a priority system and a job and money that they need to follow. So make it easy for them. That would be my advice. So when you're asking me for something, it has to make sense for me in that moment or in time, or you're going to have to find a way to make it make sense for me, because I might get 50 requests a day to talk on the phone for 20 minutes each, and I cannot do that because I am not paid to do that. My clients are paying me to fill their positions. So to cut it and make it simple, be nice, be courteous, understand where you are, and make it easy for that person.
Those are such good points. I'm distilling it all the way down to just be nice, don't be mean, treat people's time well. I think the time part, I have found it myself as when I want to really kind of double, triple, quadruple click on that particular part. Time is one thing, each of us have the same amount. So when you give somebody your time, I believe it hits viscerally. People feel the fact that you gave them your time. You don't have to say it. They don't have to say it. It's a very good base layer of a trust building relationship. So thank you so much for giving us all your time today. We are moving towards the end of this session. We have a formal vote of thanks coming from Amitav Rituri. And then we'll be having a bit of closing and some last words before we officially end. But Amitabhji, over to you.
All of us feel like we're on the cusp of something really big, really, really big. And we don't know what it exactly is. Today's session was just very informative on that front. It's just wonderful to see the perspectives of Jenni, Sarah, Rob, Nitu. Thank you so much for enlightening us with the back door, with the behind the scenes on AI. I'd also like to thank our team, our Vice President, Amit Arora, our Executive Director, Swati Deshpande, and our service team, Bhanu and Priyesh Singh, were working very fervently in the back, channeling the questions to you all. I retired about 5 years ago, so I don't think I'll be in the market space for a job. So I'm going to let Abhilasha Gulhane, one of our younger reps, thank you all formally. Abhilasha, over to you.
Yeah, Thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Abhilasha. I'm alum of IIT Kharagpur and a volunteer at PanIIT. On behalf of the team, I want to thank you to all the participants for joining this webinar and to our panelists for sharing the practical insights. I'm personally going to connect with a few of my friends who joined this event and discuss how we can implement few of the learnings of the sessions in our job search. It has been honored to volunteer for such a fantastic event, and I look forward to organize more similar events in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Abhilasha. Rob, Sarah, Jenny, Nitu, final words of wisdom for this session. I'm sure we'll have more later as well. Rob.
Be nice. Yeah, that's a good one.
Sarah?
Piggybacking off of what Nitu said earlier, your network is your net worth. Again, take the time, network, meet everyone you can, learn from them. Again, people love to talk about themselves. People are more willing to help than you think. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for a chat.
Thank you. Jenny?
Be yourself. Be yourself in this process and really understanding what your North Star is as you're guiding yourself through this next 20, 30 years of your career.
Nitu, as the person who brought us all together in so many ways.
It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be vulnerable, but get moving. Make sure that you're in action. Make sure that you're researching. Make sure that you're talking. Make sure that you're moving forward. And it's okay to switch jobs every couple of years or industries as the market unfolds. So be your own advocate, do your own research, empower yourself, follow the money.
Thank you very much, Nitu. One quick note from me. We talked a lot about knowing people and networking and such. The IIT 2026 conference is coming up in Long Beach, California, April 22nd and 25th. Check out the website, it2026.org. Check it out, show up, it'll be fun. You'll get to see some of us, and you'll get to meet many fellow alumni. Those of you who are desirous of volunteering, please volunteer. Also note, that conference, much like this event, is open to everybody. The PanIIT USA Alumni Group is very happy to host these events, not to limit the people who come into this one. Thank you all so much once again for your time. My panelists over here, Sarah, Rob, Jenny, Nitu, thank you so much. Amitabh, Abhilasha, Amit, Swati, all the volunteers who helped out. Thank you once again. You have a great day.